This is the one who calmed the storm, who stopped the waves with just a word. He is the one with power unending. This is the one who heals the blind, with power to raise the dead to life. He promises forgiveness of your sin. He is the one who loves you first, the one who knew you before birth, before creation of the earth. Jesus, He calls you out of darkest night and welcomes you into the light. He is the one that you can trust. Jesus. This is the man who conquered death. He is the one who rose again. This is the one who died for your soul. This is the one who reigns above the definition of love. He is the one who gives you your new life. He is the one who loves you first, the one who knew you before birth, before creation of the earth. Jesus, He calls you out of darkest night and welcomes you into the light. He is the one that you can trust. Jesus. 'Cause someone bled for you, died for you, sought to make you His. Then He rose for you and clothes you in His righteousness. Someone bled for you, died for you, sought to make you His. Then He rose for you and clothes you in His righteousness. He is the one who loved you first, the one who knew you before birth, before creation of the earth. Jesus, He calls you out of darkest night and welcomes you into the light. He is the one that you can trust. Jesus. Saved by your sacrifice, death overcome, glory dispels the night. You call the lifeless to wake, from death to life, out of darkness arise. Set free, saved from the power of sin, guilt overcome, from your love. Nothing can take we're safe in your love. Creation awaits the glorious day when Jesus returns and trials will fade. Creation awaits the glorious day when Jesus returns and trials will fade. Now we cry, Father, we are your children. We are adopted as your own. No condemnation. We are forgiven. Nothing can take us from your love. Creation awaits the glorious day when Jesus returns and trials will fade. a storm, who stopped the waves with just a word. He is the one with power unending. This is the one who heals the blind, with power to raise the dead to life. He promises forgiveness of your sin. He is the one who loves you first, the one who knew you.
Jesus, on the night before he was crucified, said, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down his life for one's friends." This is a weekend where we've been remembering sacrifice in a very different way, not only for Anzac Day, but we continue to worship together on a Sunday in a very different way. But we are here to worship, to remember those who've sacrificed, to remember those who are serving us in so many different ways, not only our diggers, who very much we remember and respect, but also our frontline workers in the health crisis we're going through, those who are serving one another in so many places around the world. So let's come together and worship our Lord. But before we do, let's pray. Our Lord, our God, we thank you for this opportunity of gathering together as your people. As we remember the sacrifice of so many others, we also remember the sacrifice you paid for us. And Lord, the command to love one another. But Lord, as we gather this morning, as we remember their sacrifice, we also pray that your name might truly be uplifted and exalted. For we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. He is exalted. We're going to sing together that wonderful song, He is Exalted.
Exalted, the King is exalted on high. I will praise him. He is exalted, forever exalted, and I will praise his name. He is the Lord, forever his truth shall reign. Rejoice in his holy name. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. He is exalted, the King is exalted on high. I will praise him. He is exalted, forever exalted, and I will praise is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
It is well with my soul. Truly wonderful song. You ever wonder why we call a kids' talk a kids' talk? I often do, because I think sometimes us adults enjoy the kids' talks more than the kids, well, as much as the kids. But it's great to always be able to have these kids' talks. And we've got another one today with Colin Buchanan. Thank you, Colin.
I've just been looking at a picture of one of our sponsored children. His name's Chris. And Chris doesn't live in Australia where I am now. Chris lives in the Philippines, which is a long, long way away. I wonder where you live. I wonder if there's something that God says to people everywhere. Well, I found something that is in the Bible, and it's something that God says to everyone. Somebody asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And this is what he said. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. That's a lot of alls, isn't it? And the second is this. Love your neighbour as yourself. Love. It's precious. All right. I thought, I wonder what's a memory verse from the Bible that's about the greatest commandment, loving God. And I thought of Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. And it goes. Ready, here we go. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your paths straight. Whistle. Try it. If you can't whistle, go who. Hoo, 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 hoo. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Again, trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your paths straight. Whistle. You can do the hoo-hoo again. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Ding. Well, that's a good verse. Trust God and acknowledge him. Do what he says in everything you do. That's how you love the Lord, with all your heart. Now, what's a verse from the Bible about loving other people, loving your neighbour? I know. Ephesians 4 verse 32. It goes, in the Bible, in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32, God says be kind to one another. God says be kind to one another. It's only short. You try it. Ready? In the Bible, in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32, God says be kind to one another. Again, God says be kind to one another. Now sometimes people change the beginning. I don't know why. They say when your Bible's in the freezer. Do you want to? No, we shouldn't. Okay, we're going to do it that way. All right, here we go. When your Bible's in the freezer, chapter 4 verse 32, God says be kind to one another. God says be kind to one another. One more. God says be kind to one another. Last one. God says be kind to one another. Nice. The two greatest commandments, love God and love your neighbour. Be kind to one another. And you can be kind to your family and the people very close to you. And you can be kind to your neighbour and the people that you see in your street or at the shops or people at school. And we can be kind to people who don't even live near us. Really, that's why our family was sponsoring Chris. And let me tell you about a special time, something very special that happened. I got to meet Chris. I flew from Australia all the way, a long, long way, to the Philippines. And one morning after church, I went down, the bus was outside, and someone said, "There's someone waiting to meet you on this bus." And I climbed on, and there was a seat next to Chris. And he looked at me and said, "It's finally you." And I said, "It's finally you." It was precious to meet Chris, and it's good to be kind by helping children like Chris. And it's good to be kind because God is kind. And it's good to be kind because being kind makes us feel precious and loved and treasured. Now there's a song about the love of God for us, and I think it would be a good one to sing. Jesus loves me, this I know. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. The Bible tells me so. Will we pray? I'm going to close my eyes. That helps me think about what I'm saying. You can pray with me. Our dear Lord and our God, we praise you because you are the great, high, perfect God. And we want to love you with all our hearts and with all our souls and with all our mind and with all our strength, just like you made us to do. And we want to love one another, love our neighbour, near and far, love our family, love those who need our help. Help us to do this, we pray, and be with us in times of trouble and times of hardship, to know that Jesus loves us with his strong, strong love. And we pray in his name. Amen.
Thank you, Colin. And if you want to find some activity sheets for the children, you'll find them on our kids page, on the online page on our website. It's also good we've got Dan here with us this morning from Compassion, and we'll be hearing from him later, but I know he's watching this, and so welcome, Dan. It's good to have you joining with us, and we look forward to catching up with you later. Also this week on, we don't have a lot of things, as you can imagine. We do have a leaders meeting coming up this week. We're going to do it via Zoom, obviously, rather than by in person. If you've got some issues you think the deacons, the leaders ought to be dealing with, just let one of them know or let me know, and we'll be glad to look into those issues. Don't forget our morning tea coming up later, and Dan will be joining us at that particular point, and that'll be great. And tonight we'll also be having our evening service again. Again, it'll be a Bible study over the internet. If you'd like to be part of that, contact myself or Nick, and we'd love you to come and have a look with us and enjoying with us at that particular time. But this has been a special weekend, and a weekend when we've remembered our diggers, our past soldiers. And today I've asked Ted Flower if, first of all, he'll share us a little bit about his experience of war, and then to lead us in a word of prayer. Thanks, Ted.
My name is Ted Flower, and yesterday was Anzac Day, and I've been asked to tell you a little about my wartime experiences. In 1942, Australia was at war, and the Japanese were moving closer and closer to Australia. At the age of 18, I joined up and was assigned to HMAS Manoora. It was a former cruise ship that had been fitted out as an assault ship to transport the Australian and American troops in the Pacific War. At one stage, we were given the dangerous task of transporting high-octane fuel from Manus Island to Manila, the capital of the Philippines. It was a very dangerous task because we were a time bomb ready to explode. The captain accepted the assignment under protest, and so the Manoora sailed into Manila Bay. I was given permission to go ashore to see the city of Manila, which was about the size of Melbourne. What I saw shocked me. The city had been bombed to the ground. There was not a building to be seen. All you could see was burnt out rubble. There was no people, not a single soul. Over 100,000 had been killed, firstly by the Japanese who committed terrible atrocities, and then by the Americans who just bombed the city. What I saw would be a part of me for the rest of my life. I came back to Australia and I started to help the Filipino people, but I thought, what can I do? God showed me what I could do. He said, Ted, you can do something to help these people. You can sponsor a child. And I rang Australian Baptist World Aid and asked to sponsor a Filipino child. I was able to sponsor a young girl called Frances, and through both primary and high school, she did so well that she was offered a scholarship to university. I was able to continue my sponsoring all the way until Frances graduated. I was so encouraged by this that I wanted to sponsor more. I have been to the Philippines many times because Australian Baptist World Aid organised trips so that we can meet the Filipino people who we sponsor. On one occasion, we were taken to the church that didn't have a roof. It rained. Everyone got wet. They just didn't have the money. I came home and was able to help them with money to build a new roof. There are more stories about the Philippines, but maybe some other time. Going to war has completely changed my course and my life. One of these changes was giving me a love for the Filipino nation. What I saw in Manila was terrible and could have turned me for the rest of my life. God in His love took that which was bad and turned it into good. Over the years, I have loved my connections with the Filipino people, but it all started with that wartime visit to Manila. You can make a difference. Our loving Heavenly Father, we come into your presence, Lord, to pray, and we kneel down in humble adoration of your omniscience, Lord. We come into your presence, Lord, to pray for soldiers who have been overseas and they've had problems overseas, Lord, and they've come back and they need adjustment to civilian life. And Lord, I think of those who have lost loved ones by committing suicide. A lot of soldiers have committed suicide and they need your comfort, Lord. So I pray for all those who need you, Lord, at this moment. And then, Lord, we're fighting a battle. We're fighting another war, a war against this virus that is sweeping the world, killing thousands of people. Lord, every country's been affected by it, and it's disrupting our fellowship with one another. We need your help, Lord, to a vaccine that will help us to overcome it. So, Lord, we earnestly pray for help with this epidemic that is sweeping the world, Lord. We've never struck it before so bad. So we're asking for your help, Lord, to overcome it. Then, Lord, we think of doctors and nurses and those who are attending to victims of the virus. They are to be commended, Lord, for the work that they do. And Lord, I will close now with your prayer. Our loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love for us. And Lord, I earnestly pray, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
We're going to sing now a song that reminds us that this is what we believe, that Jesus Christ is risen. This I believe. Let's sing together.
Jesus, our Savior.
Good morning, Islington Baptist. How are you? My name is Dan Pennington. I'm from Compassion, Australia, and it's a real privilege to be with you guys in your service this morning. I'm disappointed I can't meet with you in person. As you can tell, I'm sitting on my lounge in this crazy season that we're all living in. But I really want to say a huge thank you to Pastor Chris for inviting me and giving me a platform to really come and just minister with you guys this morning. So as you can probably tell from my accent, I wasn't born here in Australia. I was born actually in Kentucky in the USA and moved to Australia in 2005. My wife is from Port Macquarie originally, and we've got 4 beautiful children. So you might be able to see a picture of them here soon. Good morning. I feel like it's really such a pertinent make these little videos when I can. But we are so blessed. And then we have our 2 babies, which is Levi and Matthew. Levi is 3 and Matthew is nearly 2 now. So yes, it is a busy household at the moment, and quite noisy and busy. I've got to utilize my time when it's quiet to make these little videos when I can. But we are so blessed as a family. I wanted to read this morning from Philippians 4, and specifically in verses 1 through 9, where Paul encourages us in what it really means to walk in peace. And so I've kind of entitled this "Walking in Peace in an Anxious World." I feel like it's really such a pertinent word and time for us today, and it's really been specifically encouraging to me in this season. So reading from Philippians 4, 1 through 9 in the Amplified Bible. Therefore, my fellow believers whom I love and long for, my delight and crown, my wreath of victory, thus stand firm in the Lord, my beloved. I entreat and advise Euodia, and I entreat and advise Synecdoche to agree and to work in harmony in the Lord. Indeed, I ask you too, my true companion, help these 2 women to keep cooperating, for they have shared my struggle in the cause of the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. Delight, take pleasure in him, as it says in Psalm 37:4. Let your gentle spirit, your graciousness, unselfishness, mercy, tolerance, patience be known to all people. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious or worried about anything, but in every circumstance and in everything, by prayer and petition, definite requests, with thanksgiving, continue to make your wants known to God. And jumping down to a few verses, the peace of God, that peace which reassures the heart, that peace which transcends all understanding, that peace which guards over your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus is yours. The things which you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things in daily life, and the God who is the source of peace and well-being will be with you. May God bless the reading of his word to us today. So just a few points, a few things I wanted to highlight in this passage that Paul really shows us on what it means to walk in peace in an anxious world. First, Paul highlights that to walk in peace, we've got to walk in peace relationally. Paul literally says, help these 2 get along, help them to cooperate. His first encouragement, before he even starts talking about what it means to experience God's peace for us personally, he starts by talking about peace relationally. I've been married now for 13 years, going on 14 years. This will be our 14th year, which seems like a long time, but it's actually been, I know you think I'm a lot older than I am, but I'm not. I've got a lot of life ahead of me. And I'm so excited. I'm so blessed to have 13 years of life lived specifically with someone. And the reality is I know what it looks like. I know how hard it can be sometimes to walk in peace and walk in peace relationally. That's a decision, we have to make as a couple, for example, every day. And it doesn't come naturally. walking in peace relationally is something that, regardless of what the relationship is, it takes work. It takes intentional practice and effort. We like to think that relationships or relational health doesn't matter. But for God, it all starts with relationship. He is a relational God. And we have this incredible invitation. If we're going to walk in peace with first, individually, we've got to first walk in peace with others relationally. God's made us that way. So this isn't easy. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. And it's a daily choice. But it's Paul's first instruction of what it means to walk in peace. And there's a promise in that. Second, we walk in peace spiritually. And Paul tells us how we do this in verse 4. As soon as he finishes talking an encouragement to walk relationally, he says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Delight, take pleasure in him. Let your gentle spirit, your graciousness, tolerance, patience be known to all people." Wow, what a simple and powerful encouragement, hey. Rejoice in the Lord always. Delight and take pleasure in him. The question to us this morning is, are we delighting? Are we taking pleasure in him? Does our relationship with him bring us that peace, bring us that joy? Because that's the promise. That's really where joy is found. He's the only one that can offer us true joy. In this season with all the kids at home, you can tell it might not be very quiet, and it can be challenging sometimes to, I don't necessarily walk all the time in graciousness or a gentle spirit. These are things that we that don't come naturally. So the reality is, these spiritual gifts are gifts from him. They're all from him. They come from him. He's our source. It says in the Psalms that he is our only good. So if we're going to have an affirmation, Paul's encouraging us to walk in a gentle spirit and graciousness, tolerance, and patience. That's not from us. That's from him. That's a gift from him. So the question is then, well, is God there for us in that sense? Do we actually, does he actually care for us in that way? And it's almost like Paul is preempting the question, because in the next statement, he says simply, the Lord is near. The Lord is near. He's there for us. He wants us to draw close to him. He wants us to lean into him and know that he is our source. Peace starts from a deeper place where we're delighting in him. Peace starts from a spiritual reality. And that's an incredible promise. Finally, last but not least, we walk in peace when we walk in generosity. You might be wondering, looking over these 9 verses that I've just read from Philippians, where does Paul really talk about generosity here? But if you look at Philippians 4 as a whole chapter, and even specifically the book of Philippians, you can almost describe the whole book as a thank you note to the Philippians from Paul for specific financial and physical support. He goes on throughout the rest of chapter 4 specifically to describe this. He describes how being generous is not about benefiting us, but it's actually it's not about benefiting others. It's more about benefiting us. We know this from a mental health perspective. When we focus on others and their needs, it's actually good for us. Paul goes on in verse 17 specifically. He says, it's a profit to you, and the blessing which is accumulated for you. That's why we give. That's why we partake. That's why we do these things like sharing with others, because there's a reality, somewhat even a selfish side of it. But the reality is God's designed us to grow and benefit personally, be impacted in our own life when we are generous and share with others. Walking in generosity is a key to walking in peace. We walk in generosity in many ways. Don't misunderstand this to be some financial or necessarily physical thing. We can often walk in generosity when we're generous with little things, when we're generous with our smile. I find it interesting in this time. I've noticed that people can be pretty, uptight or scared at times, and it's just such a cool thing to be able to walk down the street and smile at people, and to be warm and friendly and engaging. We can be generous with our time. It's God's been challenging me a lot about in this season to reframe my understanding of interruptions. What does it mean to be interrupted? It's an interruption to me in the sense of what I think I want to get done. But is it really an interruption? Or is interruptions as such just a part of our journey? Is this life in its fullest? And isn't that the point? Taking time for people, taking real time for people has been an encouragement to me in this season. We can be generous in that way. But we can also walk in generosity when we give. When we give financially, when we give from our resources in any way. We don't give from our excess. So generosity isn't about giving from our excess. It's when we believe in God's provision for us and we give from that confidence and faith. Paul describes this in verse 11 when he says, not that I speak from need, for I have learned to be content. In difficult times, in times of abundance, I've learned the secret of being content. And what is that secret? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He's there for us. So in closing application, applying this to us, first of all, walking in peace relationally. Is there someone that you need to make peace with today? Is there someone in your life who you can show specific love to? Are you delighting in God today? Is that open invitation from Him as a starting place for walking in peace? And finally, are we walking in generosity? How can you walk out generosity? Walk out of God's abundance towards you today? I want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Compassion. And Compassion International is a ministry. Compassion exists to release children from poverty in Jesus' name. And that's really our goal. That's our purpose. To that end, Compassion operates under what we call our 3 C's, which really guide us as a ministry and help distinguish Compassion as well from many other aid and development organizations that are out there. Excuse me. The first C would be that we're Christ-centered. So Compassion is unabashedly Christian, and Christ is the starting place for anything and everything Compassion does. It's probably why you won't see us in a shopping center or see us on ads on TV or something. Declaring the name of Jesus Christ is central to what we do. Compassion is church-based, so that's why you're hearing about Compassion now and in this space, because Compassion partners with local churches, both in terms of how we communicate the need, but also in the way that the aid is delivered. So Compassion works exclusively through local churches to deliver aid to the poorest of the poor. So these are churches in these communities, and we call them our frontline church partners. They're really the heroes of Compassion as a ministry. And finally, Compassion is child-based. So you can sponsor a child through Compassion. It's as little as $12 a week. By doing so, you really invest in changing the destiny, trajectory, the whole story, and the day-to-day experience of that child that could be living and growing up in poverty. It's giving a child hope. Compassion sponsorship is all about that relationship, one-on-one. So you have a sponsored child that you get to write to, send cards to, send little gifts, get to know, and then they also get to write to you as well and get to know your life and get to pray for you. And there's this amazing dynamic that happens there. And we even encourage you specifically to go visit them when possible. Go visit them. It's an amazing opportunity. So I want to invite you, if you're able in this season with COVID, and if you feel God challenging you to do so, there's a unique digital web link that Chris has shared that'll be available. You can click on that, and that'll take you directly to children that are within Islington Baptist Church Partnership that you have a chance to sponsor. It's a really straightforward process, and it's by no means a contract or anything. It's literally a chance for you to invest in the life of a child. And there will be children there waiting for you in the greatest need. So if I can encourage you to do that today, thank you so much for your sponsorship and for encouraging these precious little ones. In closing, I just wanted to say to you as a church, Islington Baptist, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And thank you for your heart for the global church. Thank you for your prayers. Prayer is our most powerful ally. And particularly in this crazy time we're all living through, we have an incredible source of peace that we can rely and trust and lean into. So can I encourage you there in that God is in control. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys personally one of these days. In the meantime, stay safe and God bless you guys.
Thanks, Dan. It's always interesting the way God works. We asked Ted to do that clip on Anzac Day, with him being unaware that Dan from Compassion was going to be speaking today. We do have this wonderful opportunity to support children, either through Baptist World Aid or through Compassion. And I'm sure both organisations will be happy to support the other. But we have this wonderful opportunity through Compassion. And I want to show you now a clip that just shows you the impact that supporting a child through Compassion can have. Here's a clip from Compassion that gives us this opportunity to see just the impact that it can have upon these children, not only upon the children, but their whole family.
Nama saya Halina Astibora, umur saya 8 tahun. Saya tinggal di 5 saudara dan 2 orang tua.
Saya tidak bisa menentukan juga, tapi sebagai orang tua kami juga tidak mampu untuk melayani yang pasti bersandar kepada Tuhan.
Waktu itu, tetapi saya lebih memilih ketika pendekatan oleh gereja untuk melayani anak-anak, dan di situ saya lihat kemuliaan Tuhan bahwa lebih luar biasa kita melayani anak-anak daripada kita memikirkan hal-hal duniawi.
Sisakan kita ini, walaupun bikin rumah begini itu beban banyak karena arisan ya kita, tapi belum tutup sama sekali arisan ini. Saya stres, Asti bilang, jangan stres mama. Saya lega pikiran, saya bang cium sama anak, mesti bilang sama saya. Saya cium sama dia, saya bang, saya tidak stres sekarang, saya aman-aman sekarang.
Saya di PPA paling suka buku cerita karena rajin membaca.
Berikan kepada mereka. Terlebih lagi Helena itu anaknya, kalau saya lihat selama saya mengajar, anaknya pintar dan periang, ceria, dan sering tidak bolos masuk PPA.
Pertama, saya merasa bangga sekali Pak, karena proses perubahan kita melihat dari penampilan mereka. Karena apa yang kami lakukan bukan hanya dengan kata-kata, tapi perbuatan nyata. Baik, terima kasih. Fungsi papan data anak untuk mengetahui anak-anak yang terdaftar di PPA, berapa seluruhnya, berapa yang dapat sponsor, dan berapa yang belum punya sponsor.
Teman dapat sponsor, saya sakit hati karena tidak dapat sponsor.
Tiap kali dia kasih tahu sama saya bagaimana saya anak-anak yang lain sudah dapat sponsor, saya belum dapat. Dan saya mama berdoa juga, tapi saya tidak pernah dapat mama. Tunggu anak, tidak mungkin. Nanti Tuhan yang atur anak. Saya bilang begitu sama dia.
3-4 bulan ke depan bahwa anak-anak ini akan memiliki sponsor melalui tangan-tangan Tuhan untuk menjamah hati para yang bisa peduli kepada anak. Tuhan akan memberikan yang terbaik buat keluarga ini. Ada sukacita, Asti, keluarganya Asti mendapat sponsor, dan ini surat dari sponsor yang buat Asti.
Terima kasih banyak bahwa anak saya baik, saya kasih masuk PPA. Saya hari ini saya bangga sekali, tapi Tuhan yang balas. Saya tidak mampu balas, tapi Tuhan yang balas. Tidak pernah saya mimpi bahwa sponsornya Ati hari ini ada, tapi saya bangga sekali sehingga saya jatuh air mata. Terima kasih banyak, berlimpah-limpah.
Mereka, anak-anak itu merasa dekat dengan sponsornya, dan jadi ketika mereka menceritakan isi surat seperti itu, anak-anak merasa luar biasa bahwa itu tidak bisa dibayangin seperti itu.
Asti, namaku Rini, senang menjadi sponsormu.
Mungkin pikirnya ya sekedar komunikasi saja, tetapi lebih daripada itu, kedekatannya lebih dekat sekali. Dan saya berterima kasih kepada Tuhan yang bisa memberikan sponsor kepada anak sebagai anak dan bapak, dan saya berterima kasih kepada Compassion sebagai jembatan yang dapat menghubungkan yang ada di seberang bisa menjadi satu. Itu kebanggaan saya, dan saya merasa senang sekali.
That link to the sponsorship child, it can be found on the chat section of the YouTube for this associated with this live stream, or you can also find it in the email that the church sent out yesterday. We'd love you to be able to, if you are able, to sponsor a child. But this is all about God, giving Him glory, loving God, loving others. Let's close our time together with that wonderful song, Behold Our God. By the way, the Zoom morning tea is already up live. You can actually, if you're clever enough, can actually sing along in the Zoom chat room. But for all of us, let's enjoy as we worship our God, singing Behold Our God.
All
Him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you before his glorious presence without fault and with great joy. To the only God, our Saviour, be glory, majesty, power and authority through Jesus Christ our Lord, before all ages, now and forevermore. Amen. Thanks for joining with us this morning, and it's been a pleasure to have your company this morning. If you're able to, we'd look forward to you joining with us in the Zoom chat room. You'll find that link in either our website or in the email that was sent out, and we look forward to sharing a cup of coffee and a chat or a cup of tea with you at this time. God bless. See you next week.